What's up, everyone? It's Nate here. First off, if you haven't checked out my friend Andrew Chaw's YouTube page at One Way to Know TV, check it out. Our last October game was just posted there. It's really good, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. Alright, so what we're doing today is I had a request from Andrew Chaw himself to take a look at his AK-74U from CYMA. He had a problem at our last game, and he was having a problem with the feeding nozzle, so I figured I'd help him out. But for the first time, I decided I'm going to do a repair video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take apart this AK, and I'm going to open up the gearbox and show you how to replace the nozzle. It's very easy to do, but I figured it'd be kind of cool to open up this AK, and for my friend Shaw, who really wanted to see the inside of the gearbox, I think it's going to be pretty cool. CYMA, they're pretty good airsoft guns. I'll go ahead and show you it here. So basically, it's a very... this thing's pretty solid. It's great construction, charging handle works. I think it's mostly aluminum, plastic front, and it's got a nice folding stock on it. Here. Just like that, collapses, press a button, comes down. So we're going to go ahead and take this thing apart, and we're going to have a nice look at it. And we're going to go ahead and put a new nozzle in. I got a nice metal nozzle here. I don't know if you can see that I got from evike.com for like $7. We're gonna go ahead and install that into this gun. So, and then also this gun shoots really hot. Andrew got this stock and it's shooting a yellow tag, which is around 400 FPS. So I'm gonna go ahead and downgrade the spring on this also. So here you go. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do with this AK is we got to get the gearbox out of the gun. It is so easy to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just get the gearbox out. All I got to do is remove one screw on the bottom of your grip, and then another screw right here on your selector plate, and literally the entire gearbox just comes right out. It's so easy. Okay, once you do that, then we're going to go ahead and remove the top cover to get to the battery compartment. Take that off. And then we're going to remove the charging handle spring slide unit, whatever you want to call it. Simple. Push this forward. Pull up. That comes right out. Put that to the side. Pull your charging handle all the way back and up. That comes right out. There you go. Top part's off. Now all you gotta do is literally remove the gearbox from the shell of the gun. Alright, once you get the gearbox out, you can go ahead and put the rest of the gun to the side. You won't be needing this for what we're trying to do. Alright, so a big thing with the version 3 AK-47 gearboxes is the selector switch system on the side here. If you pull this out of the gearbox, most of the time this will just fall right out, like so. And it's very easy to lose those pieces. Be careful of these parts right here. They tend to fall around. Alright, so let's get started on taking this gearbox apart. First thing we're going to do is we're going to unscrew the motor housing from the gearbox shell. But before you do that, make sure you unplug the wires to the motor. Next, we are going to unscrew the motor housing from the rest of the gearbox, just with a simple Phillips head screw. Once these screws are out, you can just go ahead and remove the motor and the motor housing. You can put that to the side. Now we can begin taking the main screws out of the gearbox shell. Alright, one thing I forgot with AKs is they have this little shield on the top that kind of holds the gearbox at the top together. Not like version 2 gearboxes, they just got a set of screws on the top. AKs have this this plate on top because you got to fit the battery on the top of the gearbox itself. So in order to remove that, you can use a flathead screwdriver, kind of wedge it out. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Wedge this out. It's a little bent, but we'll just hammer that back into shape. It's just a piece of metal. Holds the wire housing in place. Make sure you remove the sector gear plate cover located right behind the trigger before you take the gearbox apart. It's a common thing, I just did it myself. Just make sure it slides right out. Let's see this gearbox. See what it looks like here. Okay, well, definitely greased up. It's got a nice ball bearing spring guide. Gears look good, pretty decent shape. Trigger assembly looks pretty good. Let's check out the spring. Go ahead and take out our piston here. See what the piston's in. Piston seems pretty good shape. Teeth don't seem worn out at all. O-ring seems pretty decent. No rips or anything in it. It's got one nice metal tooth on the piston. That's never bad. Alright, we'll go ahead and we'll take the piston tube out, see what the compression's like. Yeah, there's definitely a huge lack of compression there. I mean, this piston head's not even sticking. It's not even just completely loose. Completely just falls right out. Go ahead and take out your tappet plate. Just be mindful of the spring there. As you just saw, it just kind of shot out. Still got it though. So when the gun first started having problems, we thought that the problem was the tappet plate, but it's actually not. Turns out with this, the problem was the actual nozzle itself. I don't know if you can see right there. A little part of the ring cracked on the nozzle. There should be two rings sitting right there, but there's only one. So that fell right off the tappet plate. It's supposed to sit right in between there like that, and that's not supposed to come off, but because there's a crack, I guess it fell off when Chaw was shooting it. And in that case, since this fell off, BBs won't feed into the gun, so I'm gonna go ahead and put a new nozzle in here so that we can fix that problem. While we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and clean up these gears a little bit. So the other thing I noticed with this gun is it has an awful shim job. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and completely scrub down these gears and wash them up with some dishwasher soap and use a toothbrush, scrub them down. I'm going to replace the shims on them. I'm going to do it right. And I'll come back once we clean all this crap up. Just look out for your anti-reversal latch, because this little guy, because it's got a spring on it, will tend to shoot out of the gearbox and go completely missing when you go to take it apart, so always keep an eye on this guy. He likes to sits right there. Likes to pop out every once in a while. So that's Andrew Buckley. He loves these things. Before I wash everything, I just want to point out this is absolutely disgusting. The amount of grease right here is absurdly way too much. Oh, it's just, look at this. The friggin' bushing came out with it too. So I'm gonna completely take out these bushings too and wipe this up and just clean it up, because that is gross. That's pretty nasty. Alright, so I'm back and I completely clean these off with a toothbrush. Gotta dry them off, make sure they're nice and clean. Got all my parts here that I just cleaned. So right off the bat, you can tell the difference of how much cleaner the gears are now that I washed them up. They're completely clean. Got about 90% of the grease off of them. They're not going to be perfect, but it's way better than the crud that was all over them before. Because these are really good gears. They're noisy as hell, because one, they shimmed them improperly, and their other solution to poor shimming was to just literally put a shitload of grease inside the gearbox. We're going to go ahead and take our gears, and we're going to take a shim, and then we're going to go ahead and place them on the gear. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put one shim on the spur gear on the back side of it. I'm going to go ahead and put two on the back side of the sector gear. And I'm going to go ahead and take some advice that eHouse just gave me recently today. Load up two shims on the bevel gear and see how that fits. Then I'm going to put one on the bevel gear, one on the spur gear, and one on the sector gear. And we'll see how those fit. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the other half of the gearbox on there. I can listen for the resistance that they make, and if they spin very quietly is the word I'm looking for. Sorry, lost my train of thought. So I'm just going to keep playing around with that until I get it very buttery smooth. And then we'll go ahead and put this gearbox back together. Alright, so we got our trigger assembly back in. And right off the bat, I just want to take a note at how much cleaner this gearbox already is from when I first opened it. I mean, it is super clean. Alright, so here's our new nozzle. I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Now we're going to go ahead and install our piston assembly. Okay, now that that's in, we're going to go ahead and put in our anti-reversal latch. Alright, so the AOE, which is the area of engagement between the sector gear and the piston, should be fine because I didn't change the piston at all. It's a stock piston, so it should be a stock AOE setting. So I'm not concerned about that, so I won't check that. In a future video I will, but today I will not. Alright, so I have 3 springs here. I'm going to go ahead and replace it with one from a stock G&G combat machine. It's a smaller spring, it's been known to be a smaller spring, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Okay, so now we got to push the spring into the gearbox and close up the gearbox shell at the same time. It's a bit of a process to do, so I'm going to jump ahead. Okay, that was a little bit more work than I thought it would be, but eventually I got the gearbox back together. So common things you want to check for once it's back together: make sure your trigger pulls freely, make sure your nozzle moves with resistance, make sure the spring on the tappet plate is actually connected, and then make sure all your gears are in properly, that everything fits together. On AKs, make sure that your trigger piece here slides in and out of that little well for it. And then once everything's good, once it's all together, we can go ahead and we can hook back up the motor housing with the motor, and we can hook the wires back up to it. Okay, now that everything's screwed back together, we can go ahead and put the wire harness back on top of the gearbox with that plate that we took off earlier. So now that it's back together, we got everything solid. Everything's wired up. It's good. We're going to go ahead and test it with an 11-1 LiPo and see how it sounds. Alright, sounds pretty good. Let's get it back in the gun now. Alright, so we have our gun. Time to get the gearbox back in the gun. But before we do that, we gotta make sure we put the selector switch plates back on. Should look like so. And the other side should look like this. Then you can go ahead and add your selector plates. Teeth line up like that. It's not going to move. That's your safe. On the other side, you go to move your plate. It moves these. You can fire. Okay, so now that this is all set up, we're going to go ahead and put it back in the shell. Once it's in the shell, we're going to go ahead and add the selector switch to it, and that will keep the gearbox in place, because the selector switch screw actually works as a gearbox screw also. Alright, and once you get the screw in, you can go ahead and put the grip on the bottom of the AK. Alright, and once you get the grip on, you can go ahead and start assembling the top part of the fake action assembly. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take the hop-up unit, and we're going to push this back all the way onto the nozzle. We're going to take that little spacer piece and insert it in between the receiver of the AK and the hop-up unit. Just like so. Then we're going to go ahead and add the spring guide. So we go ahead and add that. Go ahead and add the top cover. Make sure the fuse doesn't get in the way. And there we go.